Welcome everyone to this webinar brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Habitchonistim. We are now in the second week of this war and the second week of our war briefings. The felt sense of unity in Israel is perhaps stronger than ever, though so is the worry over what will be. A big thank you to all of our viewers and all of our supporters for tuning in to these briefings each day. And of course, a very big thank you to Brigadier General Amir Avivi for keeping us informed and connected to what is happening during this war, despite his very busy schedule of quite literally defending Israel. We thank him for his tremendous leadership both here in Israel and on the international level. I'd also like to welcome Or Yissachar from the IDSF Research Department, who on a daily basis works at the forefront of investigation and analysis of Israel's greatest national security issues and threats. A reminder to all of our viewers that you can sign up for the IDSF mailing list to receive the recordings of these briefings. Each day after the briefing, we send out the recording, as well as notifications of future briefings. So if you are not on our list, please consider joining. I will put a link to sign up to that list in the chat. And of course, to support our work of IDSF during this war, we'll also share a link in the chat. And with that, please, General, please provide the update for today.
Yes, so as we speak, there were two rocket shots from Lebanon. We had during the day some anti-tank missile attacks from Lebanon, so the Lebanese border. From the morning, all the time, we have different events, and Hezbollah is challenging us along the border, but still it's something contained. It's not certainly not a war, full-scale war with Hezbollah. In the north, there are towns that are near the border that were evacuated. So at the beginning, we said to the people, look, if you don't want to be in your home, you can move south, but then they don't get compensation or something like that. So the government passed a decision to order the people to go out of the towns that are near the border, and then they get compensated, and the government takes care of them. So basically, along the border in the north, mostly army, a lot of army, and most of the citizens have left. And also Hezbollah is aware of that, so he's challenging the army along the border. In Gaza, in the last 24 hours, more than 200 Air Force attacks. The Air Force is constantly degrading the capabilities of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, targeting high-ranking terrorist infrastructure, tunnels, headquarters, warehouses, everything that needs to be targeted. And some people feel like because we didn't start yet our ground operation, that maybe there is hesitation, or I'm not sure what's going on. And the shooting from Gaza has decreased dramatically. I think that Hamas, knowing that it's going to be destroyed if we do the ground operation, they are like trying to find some kind of ending before we go in, but it's not going to help them. There will be a ground operation, and we will regain control of the Gaza Strip and destroy them. Preparing the reserve units, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, it takes time. We wanted them to be well-trained, to have all the equipment, to really understand all the plans. And this is the right way to go. I mean, we started with real chaos in the first few days, but we managed to really balance things. And now everything is very, very planned, very clear orders from the government. And then the army knows what it needs to do and can give clear orders to the units and the soldiers. And when it goes like that, usually it works well. So we'll be all expecting in the coming days, at a certain point, a massive ground operation in Gaza. And really the question is, okay, so what will happen in the north? I've talked about 4 different things that are restraining Hezbollah. One of them is Iran itself. I mean, they can change their mind, but overall, giving up Hezbollah will expose Iran completely to Israel and to the US. And it's something that I think it's a very big, difficult decision for them to take, to involve Hezbollah and then also maybe involve themselves. I think is the state of Lebanon. There are many players in Lebanon that completely oppose a war. They know what will be the price, and they're afraid to really already this falling apart of a country to go into war. It will be really devastating for them, and they know that. The third thing is that we're fully prepared for war. We have drafted all of our army, all our northern divisions are in the north. The Air Force, everything is now really working like a war machine. Not exactly the best time to challenge us. And the last reason is the US. More and more forces, more and more warships, and a clear message: don't do that. I mean, we'll intervene, and we see a very, very close cooperation. President Biden is supposed to arrive to Israel. This is a huge, huge change in American policy in the Middle East, completely changed everything that we expected, that we wanted to happen. When the ground operation will start, a part of really expanding, supporting our troops and talking about what's going on while we are conquering Gaza, really the big discussion is the day after. I had this week a very fierce discussion on TV about Egypt. Egypt is playing a double game. On one hand, they have a peace agreement with us and they cooperate with us on a certain level. It's a very cold peace, very cold. It's not Emirates and Bahrain, but it's a peace. On the other hand, they are enabling endless amount of weapons to go into Gaza. The Gaza-Egyptian border is only a few kilometers. Should be no issue to control this, but they're not doing that. Even when we gave them the opportunity to bring better forces and bigger, still endless amount of weapons are going in, and the Egyptians are endangering us. And it's time for us to really say things as they are, and not just say, we're afraid that, maybe we'll hurt the peace agreement. They need the peace agreement more than us. And at the end of the day, we need to take care of the security of our citizens. It's more important than them getting annoyed or not. But not everybody understands that. Bottom line, because we cannot trust them, really, at the end of this war in Gaza, if we don't want terror infrastructure inside Gaza, we need 2 things. We need to control this border. We cannot have any more Palestinians on this border. And we need full freedom of operation everywhere, like in Judea and Samaria. What I'm saying here, it's clear to me. Maybe it's clear to many of you, but it's not clear at all. It's something that needs to be clarified to the government, to the army, and also to the US, to the international community. Without that, we cannot reassure the people who live in the south that they'll be safe. We won't be able to keep them safe. And it's time that we are very clear on what are the terms needed for us to do what we need to do. And this is something that we are fighting now as IDSF to really, really convey this message everywhere and make sure that this happens. And we won't find ourselves again in some kind of Oslo or a disengagement or any other bad idea that people had in the past. The big dilemma is really the North. We want to keep the North fairly quiet to really focus on Gaza on one hand. On the other hand, when we finish with Gaza, we'll have to deal with the North at a certain point, and it's better to do it in coordination with the US, and we also have to deal with Iran. It's not going to end until we deal with Hezbollah and Iran, and it's not something we will be able to really push too far away. I believe that many of the talks that are being held now between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu definitely have to do with Iran and Hezbollah, even more than Hamas. Hamas, there's nothing to talk. We need to go in and destroy them. Not much talking here. Hezbollah and Iran is a big deal and a lot to talk about. When, how, in what way, it's a big, big issue. If they will attack us while we're operating in Gaza, this is the simple scenario. Simple because then there is no dilemma. We're in a war and we have to fight. If they don't attack us, then the big question will be, what do we do and when? We cannot have in the northern border what we had in the south, these thousands of militants, terrorists, murderous terrorists that stormed our border. In the north, these forces are much stronger, much more trained, much more equipped, and much closer to the towns, and also in an area that is more complicated. This is not something we can live with. But we're not going preferably to fight two fronts. It's better to concentrate on Gaza at the moment, but not forget that we still have a very big threat from the north that eventually we'll have to deal with. I can say, driving along the roads, that life in Israel is a bit turning to normality for the time being, because the amount of rockets is diminishing. It can change. This is what's going on now. I will now transfer things to Or.
Thank you, General Avivi. I'd like to take it from here very briefly, and then open it up to questions about Iran's role in the whole thing, and specifically their nuclear program. General Avivi said something very important. I'm sure you noticed that Iran and Hezbollah is a big deal, and they're deeply involved in this. And I think right now the big question we need to ask ourselves is, how is it a war between Iran and the West and not just Israel and Gaza? Okay, Iran and the West and not just Israel and Gaza. And I think the bottom line is we need to understand this, and second, what can the United States do about it? Moshe, if you could please be kind enough to let me share screen. We'll do it very briefly. All right. Moshe? Let's see if that works.
Yeah, let me see if I can give you.
So it's these three dots, make host. When hovering over my box, make host, okay? So by the time you do that, I'll just start by saying that we had several developments from the past 24 hours, okay, even 12 hours. We have the Iranian foreign minister, Amir Avivi, threatening to launch a preemptive strike against Israel in case Israel continues its attacks in Gaza and moves on to ground operation. This is Iran threatening Israel with preemptive strike if Israel defends itself. And number two, an Iranian proxy in Yemen, of all places, the commander of the Ansarullah, so-called, has threatened to launch a preemptive strike, saying we are ready to confront Israel in case Israel continues its aggression against Gaza and the Palestinian people. So this is very important to bear in mind, that Iran is an active participant in this war, not just an observer. Let's turn very briefly to this to several points here. So why is this a war between Iran and the West, and what can the United States do about it? You can see here the Iranian leader in military march. Let's start very simple. Iran has a military nuclear program. Now we all know that. I speak Farsi, so we can see as the missile actually has a printing says Israel bayad as mantare maf b'shit. Israel needs to be wiped off the face of the earth, and this is really not just talking. This is the strategic plan of the Iranian regime to wipe Israel off the map. If they're writing in on their missiles, that they will carry it out should they have the chance. And to that end, Iran has been developing nuclear weapons. We all know that, but I think we gotta bear in mind how close they are to this. We know, thanks to Israeli intelligence and thanks to IAEA reports. This is the international really watchdog for nuclear weapons. It's called the International Atomic Energy Agency. I'm sure you've heard about it. And it says, basically, IAEA say that Iran is 2 to 3 weeks away from a nuclear bomb. Now, it doesn't mean that in 2 to 3 weeks they're going to have a nuclear bomb. That means that they have the capacity to do it. So it's no longer a matter of capacity. It's a matter of decision. Should Iran decide to, as they say, decide to develop nuclear weapons because they have the capabilities, so we're going to have a very, very short window of time. It's called a breakout time. So should the Iranian regime decide to break out to nuclear weapons, they are 2 to 3 weeks away from it. And I can tell you all about, 20% enriched uranium and 60% enriched uranium. Bottom line is that they have enough fissile material to enrich uranium to a military grade of 90%. So they still have little ways to go to develop the technology to actually put it on a warhead and launch a missile. But they are really a heartbeat away from developing nuclear weapons. It's an only matter of decision. So think about, like President Peres said, the late President Peres, Israeli president, who said, if the hangman has the weapon, right? If India has a nuclear weapon, but you can't find a hangman, I don't care about it. But once the hangman wants nuclear weapons, this is where I have the problem. Because Iran has become the hangman of the Hamas war against Israel and in sending its proxies. But imagine all of that, all the mess it's doing around the region, together with nuclear weapons. This is precisely why Israel said, and I think President Biden and President Trump, and it's a consistent U.S. policy not to allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons. But now we're in a critical moment in time where we got to really make sure it doesn't happen. And whether or not this war develops into a regional conflict, should Iran decide to join the war? This is a big question mark. But in that case, I'm pretty sure that the U.S. and and Israel will decide, well, we've had it. It's time to attack Iran and attack their nuclear program. It's not a light decision taken lightly. And so we got to bear in mind that the consequences. Okay, let's be very brief about it. So here is the map of the Iranian nuclear facilities. Most notably, you got in Natanz, you got an underground facility. You can see in the picture on the right-hand side. So this is an underground facility actually dug in the mountain. It's a picture from, I believe, June or July, where they decided to actually dig in underneath a really tall mountain in central Iran. A nuclear facility with advanced, where they installed advanced centrifuges. They can reach uranium there. And bottom line, it's much safer and kept out of the hands, out of sight for airstrikes. This is Israeli intelligence. We can see how both the Abadeh and the atomic warehouse in Tehran, where Iran hides nuclear material and fissile material in spite of its obligations. You got to remember, Iran signed an agreement with the West and the international community, including US, Russia, and China, the nuclear deal of 2015. And in spite of that, Iran has been hiding and cheating and hiding all of these materials around Iran. You got to remember, Iran is a country of 80 million people, right? Half the size of Europe. If you put Spain, the UK, France, and Germany combined, you won't get to the size of Iran. It's huge. And so we can't trust, the Israeli intelligence, as brilliant as it is. And I'm a graduate of the Israeli intelligence apparatus. We can't trust ourselves to be tracking down a nuclear weapon developed in a small corner, in a faraway corner of Iran underneath a mountain. A country half the size of Europe, right? So we gotta act in order to prevent it from happening, and right now it's not happening. So let's be clear about that as well. Moving on, this is the Zulfar is a type of a long-range ground-to-ground missile. Basically, Iran has the largest array of ground-to-ground missiles anywhere in the Middle East. This is why it's so dangerous. You see the range of missiles that they have is capable of covering the entire state of Israel. Not only that, we used to think of Iran as a faraway place, especially from Israel. And if we see this map, this is what I call, well, we all hear about the Iranian octopus, right? The Iranian octopus, where it sends its tentacles around the region. This is the true map of Iran in my eyes. In my eyes, this is the map of Iran. It's not just the country called Iran. It's also Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Yemen, and so many other places where they hold their proxies, most notably Hezbollah and Hamas, right? These are Iranian proxies. But Iran is also mobilizing right now its proxies in Iraq and Yemen, where they say, the Iranian foreign minister says, we are ready to act in case Israel continues. And this is completely unacceptable. So we need to anticipate and be ready for attacks from Iraq and Yemen as well, maybe attack drones like we saw in the 2021 conflict, maybe something else, maybe even from Iran itself. Now, as General Avivi said, it's not the wisest move imaginable for Iran, but we got to take it into account, okay? This is the Iranian leader actually hugging with, buddying up with his proxies around the region. We got, for example, in the left-hand picture, you got the Iranian leader on the left, Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah in the center, and on the right-hand side, well, may his memory not be a blessing, is Qasem Soleimani, who was taken down by President Trump in 2019. He was the commander of the Quds Force, the Quds Force under the IRGC, really the Iranian arm that guides and trains and equips all of these proxies. And this is, of course, Ismail Haniyeh from Hamas. Iran is vocal and takes pride in its funding and training and espousing and harboring of Hamas. This is, for example, these are UAV attack drone attacks by Iran around the region. In the last few years, we can see all of that unfold in the Middle East, where they attacked U.S. Marines and other soldiers around Iraq, attacking Saudi Arabia. Most notably, you can see on the bottom corner, on the right-hand side, you can see the attack on Aramco, right? Where the Saudis felt completely exposed. 5%, well, actually, Iran attacked with missiles and with attack drones, basically half the Saudi oil production capabilities. The Aramco facilities, where it actually impacted 5% of the world oil production, and was actually you could have seen it from the International Space Station from satellite. So Iran has massive and deadly capabilities. On the right corner, we can see Iran's missile ranges and so on. So yeah, let's just wrap it up here. I want to get to your questions. Just bear in mind, this is not a war just between Israel and Hamas. Iran is an active participant, and the United States can act. It can snap back sanctions. The Europeans can snap back sanctions. It can pose a credible military threat on Iran. And as General Avivi says, if Iran decides to join, the choice is very simple, right? We need to act against Iran. So with that, I'd be happy to take your questions.
Or this is very fascinating and insightful. Thank you so much for sharing this. We are running out of time, but we are absolutely going to need to have you back to continue this discussion. Before one final question, I just want to note to everyone that our briefings are continuing this week. After this briefing now, we will be sending out a recording and, of course, an invitation for tomorrow's briefing. Tomorrow's briefing, these are all special briefings bringing you very knowledgeable people on the forefront of what's happening in Israel. Tomorrow's briefing, we will have on a former Mossad senior officer. So that is not to be missed. And with that, just one final question, either for General Avivi or for Or. Hamas committed an atrocity against Israel, and it became abundantly clear Israel had to declare war and go into Gaza. What is that breakout point with Iran or with Hezbollah, where Israel says this is now, they've declared war on us and we need to declare war on them? Meaning there's all of these skirmishes and activity. At what point does Israel say enough is enough?
I think that Hezbollah launching a war means massive shooting of rockets, missiles, drones. The moment Hezbollah does that, we are in war. as long as they are challenging specific military positions along the border, it's not war yet. And if we have to go to war, we go to war also with Hezbollah. We have drafted the whole army. But I think that at the moment we want to really focus on Gaza, and we'll have to deal with them, but preferably later on.
Or do you have a final comment?
Yeah, so I just want to say that we are glad to be providing you with all of our research material. You know, sometimes research sounds quite heavy, you know, quite a heavy lift, but actually we try to make it all accessible and, in a simple language, and to make it accessible to everyone with executive summary and short videos and what have you. So feel free. I just sent on the chat the link to our website. Our recent research paper on Iran and its nuclear capabilities. A lot of what I talked about today is there, and feel free to explore, to those of you on Instagram, TikTok, IDSF Israel on Instagram and TikTok, and on Facebook and Twitter, just, say IDSF and we're there. We constantly upload material and updates constantly, so feel free to check out there, and we're here for any questions.
Okay, Brigadier General Amir Avivi, Or Yissachar, thank you so much for this very insightful briefing. Thank you to all of our viewers and all of our supporters. Take care, everyone.